everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next workshop today, Transit and Leadership Building, De-Stressing the Workplace. We are really excited to offer this workshop today. We have heard from many of our providers, stakeholders, and others in the MPTA about the need for tools now more than ever to deal with the stressors of leading frontline workers. Mindfulness is an invaluable tool to manage our responses to situations and avoid becoming overwhelmed. This workshop is designed to help professionals understand what mindfulness is all about in today's world, introduce tools for reducing stress, and to build skills for guiding others through the many daily stress challenges. The workshop includes lecture as well as experiential practices. I'd like to welcome Meg Krejci, the Executive Director of Masterpeace Studios, and invite her to help us all find a little peace today. Meg, I'm going to turn it over to you, but I want to remind the participants of the workshop that if they do have questions for you to put those in the chat box so that you can answer those later. But welcome, Meg Krejci. We're happy to have you here today.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here today, and thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to share mindfulness with everyone. It's been very important for me in my life. I've been practicing for close to 30 years, and my studio in town, teaching mindfulness to all ages, actually, across the region, and also working at Washington University, teaching mindfulness tools to everyone in that community. So I'm very happy to be here with you today and talking about de-stressing the workplace. And I think we can all agree that there's lots of stress currently, right? Like layers of pandemics, and it affects us. It affects us a lot. And affects us as leaders and managers, and so does it our employees. So mindfulness is a wonderful tool to support de-stressing, and inside of de-stressing ourselves, our employees also can benefit from managers carrying less stress. So today we're going to talk about mindfulness and actually practice some mindfulness. I have a few slides to show, but first I just wanted, if you can use the chat, let me know what stressors that you believe your employees to carry. Like what do you think the stress is that your employees are feeling day to day in their jobs? So just make a few comments in the chat. I'm curious about will I have a job? Yes. Employment, safety for themselves, right? Whether they, that they be healthy, right? COVID, work deadlines, fear and uncertainty is huge for everyone. Like how's all this going to turn out, because it just seems to be unending. And then I want you to just make a couple notes. Yes, school is huge. We're working and homeschooling. And of course, the public fear. Like this is, this fear and uncertainty, it runs across the entire community. And after thinking about your employees, how about yourself? Like your own personal carrying of stress. What would be your top one or five? What's at the top of the list for yourself? Yes, our families. And then I do think that's at the top of the list, right? Our own well-being and the well-being and health and wellness of our families. Right, and being the best leader that you can be. There's a lot of pressure, right? Pressure to step up because there's so much going on. So we can all acknowledge and reassure one another we're in this together. We all are carrying fears personally and our families and our employees and the community. So I think it's so important when we talk about stress to actually work with our own stress that we're carrying individually, because if we're stressed, our employees and those around us will be stressed. And it's also, if as a leader, our responsibility, right, to work with this stress. And stress is part of life, and right now we just happen to have loads of it. But stress is a part of life. And it's our responsibility to be able to work with it. And it's so helpful to our employees and those around us to acknowledge that we have stress. We're carrying stress, and that we share in this, and that we can cultivate the ability to respond. I like to do this play on responsibility, to respond. Responsibility is the ability to respond to stress in a helpful way. So that's what we're looking at doing through the mindfulness practice, is cultivating this ability to respond to stress versus react. And please continue with comments in the chat, and as we go through these slides, and then actually try a practice. So I'm going to bring my slides forward now. And actually, I need the ability to share screen. If someone can help me. So there we go. Thank you. Just a little stress there for a moment. So hopefully on your screen, you're noticing the slide Taste of Mindfulness to De-Stress the Workplace. And we're going to spend the next hour together talking about and actually experiencing mindfulness. So mindfulness, I like to talk about mindfulness like tasting honey. So we can talk about honey, like the color of honey, the texture of honey, the benefits of honey, but until you put honey on your tongue, you don't really know honey. So the experience of honey on the tongue brings along a whole new dimension of knowing honey. And mindfulness is so much that way, because we can talk about mindfulness and how it can help, and until you've experienced a practice, then you'll know. So hopefully after today's session, you'll know how mindfulness can support you as a leader, managing your own stress in these very uncertain times, and will also help you be available for your employees to support them managing their stress. And in that way, having everyone work together, right, in a much more healthy, well way. So we're going to try some practices, and we're going to talk about how it can be supportive of yourself, what the anatomy is of stress, how stress works, and then how to find relief. And so the program that I teach is this evidence-based curriculum, a mindfulness-based stress reduction, that was created by John Kabat-Zinn in 1979. And this program was meant for patients with chronic pain to help themselves, and through these practices get some relief from pain, where the medical field, medicine wasn't really supporting any relief for them. And so he created this program, which is a curriculum that progresses in an orderly way through more skillful, skill-based practices, and also a richer and deeper content about how to manage stress. And so what he learned in 1979 is these patients found relief. So their relationship to their pain shifted to one of less pain, and also emotionally less grief, anger, resentment, frustration, all the emotions that you can imagine you would carry along with the pain if that was your circumstance. So it was proven to be very successful. And now, of course, mindfulness is they're talking about it everywhere, right? And so it's, and there's been like in the last decade, like 6,000 studies that have supported the benefit of mindfulness. And now, of course, when they talk about this mindfulness and the benefits, it's regarding this curriculum, you know, which does take some time. And hopefully today when we do a practice, you'll get some immediate relief, but you can see how a regular practice can really support a way of working with stress that's transformational to your moment-to-moment experience. And so this book, The Full Catastrophe Living, is written by John Kabat-Zinn, and it has the entire curriculum. So if you wanted to do some self-study, it's all in this book. And the idea here is about being fully human, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And with mindfulness practice, it helps you with the difficult aspects of life. And as you learn to navigate those, there's more freedom actually to appreciate the richness of life, which is also here that we tend to miss because we're so caught up in the grip of life, you know, the problems of life and the stresses of life. So through this curriculum, it's about your relationship to the present moment, your relationship to yourself, to others. And through practice, we're able to shift that to one that's more helpful and ultimately more happiness. And so the John Kabat-Zinn definition around mindfulness is about paying attention. So mindfulness is paying attention. And so that's a cognitive exercise of focusing the mind on where you choose to focus it. So it's an exercise of concentration and focus. So you're paying attention, and we pay attention in a particular way. And we pay attention with kindness and with compassion. So you might notice that there's a tendency in life to be harsh towards ourselves, right? The self-criticism that's happening. And we cultivate kindness towards ourselves, which then allows us to be kind to others. And there's a curiosity. We pay attention with curiosity. So there's a whole list of these that we actually learn as part of the practice of paying attention. And we do this on purpose. So because if there's a choice in the matter, the tendency of the mind is to wander about 47% of the time. And as it wanders, it turns to go down some habitual pathways, habitual patterns, stories, you know, ways of thinking that aren't always helpful. And so the practice is to, on purpose, come back again and again to your object of attention during the formal practices. And it's moment to moment, because in any moment the mind will jump, right? The mind will jump to the past. There'll be a story, a memory. And in the past, there's grief, there's an emotion, right, that's associated with the memory. Or to the future. And if it goes to the future, that's where this worry and the uncertainty and the fear, anxiety lives when the story is about the future. And if it is present, it's generally commenting or narrating about what you're doing in not a helpful way. So moment to moment, we're redirecting the mind back on purpose in a kind way to the direct experience, not what the mind is saying about it. So if we notice the mind is always thinking compulsively, right, you can hardly turn it off, that we're missing the direct experience. A lot of times when we are in our day-to-day life, we're experiencing it through the mental interpretation of the experience, not the direct experience. So which is generally sensory, actually, the direct experience, the eyes, the ears. So we come back to the direct experience without judging and striving. So this judging and striving is a big part of it, because again, the mind's tendency to judge. And Sorry, I'm so sorry. The mind's tendency to judge about what you're doing, how you're doing, good, bad, right, wrong, and even like in this moment, judging something's not quite right because her slides were moving around. And then inside of that, there's a striving that happens as well, and very much conditioned habitual thinking, even society conditioning to achieve, produce, consume. And inside of that judging something's not quite right, they're striving to fix it. And so, and this can be very stress inducing. And so the idea is to let all that go and let the judging go and the striving go, and to be in this moment fully. So this is the formal definition of mindfulness regarding the formal practice. And it also lends itself to informal, which is bringing it into your daily life, and then ultimately mindful living, more mindful, more often, so that we're present to what we're doing while we're doing it with kindness, and working with stress as it comes. So the practices start with body-centered practices. And because the body's always present, the body's your tool in this moment to support rest. And that's very much where this curriculum starts, is giving your mind and body rest in this moment, because it's exhausting to carry this stress around all the time. And the stress tends to accumulate in the body and the mind. And so the practices start in the body, and we focus the attention in the body, drawing the away from the mind, right, into the body, and in that sense, focusing the attention on the breath, which is what we'll try in a moment, a mindful stretch, and noticing then when the mind jumps around to the past or into the future. And it's like teaching a puppy to sit. So if you haven't taught a puppy to sit recently, you bring the puppy back again and again and again and again, and eventually the puppy sits for longer. Mindfulness is the same. Eventually, so if this is the first time you've tried this, eventually, we sit longer. We can hold the attention for longer periods of time in the body without the mind jumping. So if you want to just send me a few notes, if you've heard anything new, if you practice mindfulness regularly, or if this is the first time you've tried mindfulness, I'd love to know where you are inside of this practice. And we're going to go ahead and try it. So what I'd like to do is a mindful stretch and mindful breathing. So this is our first practice. And what I want you to do, especially this is a good time for this because it's after lunch and you might be feeling a little tired. And if you've eaten, or if you are eating, just put lunch to the side for a moment, and we'll just do a few stretches. And just notice that most of the time we live in our heads, right? We're always thinking and working intellectually, moving through our days. And so this is an opportunity actually to let go of the thinking mind and let go and move into the body. So we're going to give the body some attention here. And this is called 6 points of the spine. And so we're going to move the spine in 6 different directions. And this will support waking up the body. And the object here is to put your attention, focus the attention on the sensation, the direct experience of the stretch. And if the mind wanders, just keep bringing it back into the body, this sensation of stretch. So go ahead and move to the middle of your chair so that the spine is upright. And we're going to synchronize as best we can, kind of breathing and moving. And noticing when you breathe, there's a sensation as well. So the attention can be on the breath and the stretch. So the hands are by the side. And this is mindful movement. The attention is in the body with the movement. So you're going to reach the arms overhead, big breath in, nice big stretch in, breathe in, and breathe out. And just notice how much the body loves it when you pay attention to it. And now a side stretch, breathe in, reach up, stretch up, And then take the stretch to the side. So nice big stretch, looking up, make this feel good, right? Stretching, looking up and yawning. Very good. So you're supporting the body here. And breathing, stretching, reaching up and over, side stretch on this side. So you're sensing this stretch from the hip to the fingertip. You're looking up towards the ceiling and yawning on this side. Very good. And you might notice that when you yawn, there's a break in the thinking. So just something to notice. And so now we'll do a twist. So breathing, reaching, stretching up, and then taking the arms down into these goalpost arms and doing a twist. So turning to the side and then turning the head and neck for a nice big twist. And then ever so gently, so we're not pushing ourselves around here, we're twisting to the other direction, turning the head. Very good, and coming center, breathing up, one last big stretch up, and bringing the arms down. Very good. And now taking your hips to the back of the chair, and we'll move into mindful breathing. And so in this practice, the purpose is to direct the attention into the body and noticing the breath. And we're going to kind of step into the practice. So just follow along and just notice how you can sense into the body. Hopefully you got a little bit of relief with some stretches, and noticing the weight of the body. So you can notice that the body's being supported in the chair. So you can sense into the body and notice and feel that. You can feel your feet hopefully resting on the floor and leaning back so that the body is also resting and supported by the chair. So in this moment, give yourself permission to rest. The body's supported and there's no efforting necessary to hold the body up. So you can just kind of sink into the chair. And just taking a moment here to be with the inquiry, how am I right now? Mindfulness, it really supports this knowing and checking in, how am I right now? And whatever's here, let it be okay. So we don't fight with it, struggle with it, judge it, just whatever's here, let it be here because it's what's here. And so noticing what thoughts might be present, especially as we consider the stressors that our employees and as leaders that we're carrying. So the concerns about the future, noticing how the concerns bring the worries. And then noticing how all that manifests in the body. So we carry all that in the body. So noticing if there's any tension, gripping, tightness, holding in the body. And just really wrap yourself in kindness as we kind of go through this exercise of acknowledging everything that we carry, everything that we're carrying in this moment, in mind and body. So the experience of being you right now. And then with mindfulness, we learn to let it go. We learn to invite it to fade into the background. And in the foreground attention, like a spotlight, you're going to direct it towards the body breathing. So in this moment, you know that you're breathing. The attention is on the breath. You know that you're breathing in and out. And then you're curious. Curiosity is what holds the attention. How am I breathing right now? Noticing that inhale, and as best you can, staying with that sensation for the entire moment-to-moment inhale. And as best you can, holding that attention on that breath for the moment-to-moment sensation of exhale. And letting the breath be the anchor in the present moment. So if the mind rushes back in with stress, concerns, worries, there's emotions, there's sensations in the body or other distractions, sounds, so your attention's pulled from the breath, that's not a problem. That's what happens during the practice. We just direct the attention with kindness towards ourselves and that wandering thinking mind back to the breath again and again and again and again. And so we're noticing this sensation of expansion as we breathe in, and noticing the sense of relaxation that happens as we breathe out. So with each out breath, we can relax and kind of sink a little further into the chair, into this present moment, letting the shoulders drop from the ears. And just noticing that we receive the breath exactly as it is, exactly as it comes. It's as if you're sitting on the beach and watching the shore receive the wave, comes up onto the shore. There's this little space or pause before the wave goes back out into the ocean. And we experience the breath in the same way. Allowing it to be exactly as it is. And so we'll begin to step our way out of the practice. So just sending some gratitude towards yourself for taking this time of self-care. And just know you can drop out of the head into the body anytime for a rest or relief from the carrying of stress during the day. And begin to sense the space around the body, the temperature on your skin, beginning to step out of the practice, opening the eyes when you're ready, coming back to the Zoom. And as you come out of the practice, I'm just curious, what was your experience of that, taking that time to de-stress with mindfulness, of a stretch and breathing? If you can just drop some notes in the chat. And so it's important to take the time really to just check in and notice how you're feeling after the practice, because it really supports just acknowledging the shift. So if we give the body a chance, if we give the body an opportunity, the breathing will take us to a resting breath. And if we can let the thinking mind also go, we get a break from the mind, and then the body can rest. The mind and body can rest. And so when we talk about your present moment experience, there's three things that are happening in any given moment. Is that you have a body, right? You experience this moment through the body, and there's sensations in the body, right? The body's breathing. And then we also experience this present moment through thoughts in our mind. And so the mind is thinking all the time, and there's stories, and there's opinions, and there's assumptions and expectations. And then there's also emotions and your present moment experience. And this is really called, you can also call this the mood, your mood, or you can call it the energy in the body, emotions. And it's really where the body and the mind meet. So emotions really occur as sensations in the body. And so just know that this is intimately related. So depending on what you're thinking, affects the body, right? We carry it and hold it in the body. And so we can shift any one of these to shift our present moment experience. And the program of mindfulness-based stress reduction starts with the body, shifting the body so you get relief from these thoughts and emotions. In the advanced program, we actually work with your thoughts and emotions directly because stress occurs in the mind and in the body. And it's helpful to know this for yourself and how you're currently holding stress so that you can support your employees, knowing they're also carrying stress in this current day more than ever before. And so the process of mindfulness is to pay attention to your body, your thoughts, and your emotions. And pay attention to your present moment experience, especially if it's stressful, so that you can take care of yourself. and those around you as a leader. And the intention is to know thyself, know the stressors that you're carrying, and the ability to cultivate rest for yourself so you can take care of yourself and mitigate stress. And this intention can shift through your journey of mindfulness. And attitudes, the attitudes are the particular way we pay attention. And we really are creating new habits here with this practice, habits of checking in with mind and body. How am I? So that you can support, well, what I like to say is minimize harm and maximize well-being for yourself and others. And so how we pay attention is non-judging, non-striving. We cultivate patience, right? The beginner's mind, curiosity, like we don't already know that this is new every moment. Trusting yourself, trusting this moment actually, accepting and allowing. So all of these are attitudes that are cultivated actually through the formal practice, and then they show up in your life in a mindful living, kind of more helpful, more supportive, life supporting, I should say, attitudes. And so just a moment here on the anatomy of stress. And this is so helpful when we talk about taking care of ourselves so that we're present and available to support others who are also stressed. And if you think about stress as anything that might create unhappiness for yourself or others. So stress, anything that could create unhappiness. The mind doesn't like that. And this is called a stressor. And so it starts in the mind actually, and then it travels like the anatomy, the chemicals that are released as we feel stress are real. And they move down in through the nervous system, and on the left side, the parasympathetic is our rest and digest side of things, they call it. So all healing happens on the left side. And you can see the organs, the glands, the muscles that are in reaction, or actually in this case, in maintenance when you're resting. And on the right side, the sympathetic side, that's the fight or flight side. And so as you move into stress or move into action, anything, all stress isn't bad, right? Stress is motivating. Stress invites movement and growth and learning. So it's not always bad. So when we wake up in the morning, we're moving. And the sympathetic side of things is a fight or flight. And again, the eyes, the lungs, the heart, what I want to mostly highlight here is that this is a natural phenomenon. It's biological, it's part of our makeup, and it's meant to keep us alive. And the idea is that we move between fight or flight and rest and digest throughout our day. And it's meant to be a balancing kind of process. And in a severe threat, like a life-threatening type of situation, a healthy cycle would be you're resting, there's the threat, and the threat gets resolved through fighting or fleeing, and then you're relaxed. And so this would be the saber-toothed tiger, right? Modern day, it's been like if you lose your cell phone, right? You go into major fight or flight until you find your cell phone, and then you're like, oh, everything's okay, I'm fine. And you can sense the body relaxing. Or, if you're crossing the street and you step out into traffic and there's a car, you've got to jump back up onto the sidewalk. Everything's on high alert. On the sidewalk, you're like, oh, now I'm okay. And this would be a healthy cycle. And again, this is involuntary. This just happens. Your system is quite phenomenal and amazing, actually. But modern day stress is not like this. The cycling isn't necessarily happening. We don't have necessarily life-threatening stressors anymore. We still can, of course, but most of our stress are minor stressors and that keep escalating over the day and that aren't getting necessarily resolved. And so we're going through life just accumulating this stress. And like nowadays with the uncertainty and, you know, there's a lot of stress that we're picking up and carrying all day long, and it's not getting resolved. And so, you know, as a manager and a leader, what we know about this stress is we can't keep carrying it like this. It's not sustainable. And they actually have a word for it, and it's called burnout. And so as a manager, we really want to support our employees prevent burnout, and as a manager, even model behavior and tools that help mitigate this stress. So that, because we all know we're stressed out. So mindfulness is a wonderful tool for this, because as you ask the question, how am I right now? Or as you begin to have this relationship with your body where you can feel it rising, you can feel the shoulders coming up to the ears, maybe you carry your stress in your lower back or, you know, behind the eyes, or noticing physically that this is beginning to be a lot. Or just the energy in the body, right? There's a nervous, shaky energy in the body. And as you begin to notice this in that moment, you can practice mindfulness and bring yourself down a couple steps down and bring your body off of that fight or flight into rest and digest. And as we do this for ourselves and model this, we can support our employees to do this, take the time for this as well. And the other thing that happens as we go through life on this, you know, gripped, you know, in life and the problems of life is we tend to lose ourselves. And as we lose touch with ourselves, we lose touch with others, we lose touch with the world. If you, and the idea is to bring it back, you know, is to take a moment and come back to the present moment and what's important now. Because we tend to just get swept away with it, right? And it just keeps going. And so coming back to this present moment, restoring a rest, like taking the time to rest and take care of oneself, coming off of dropping this heavy burden just for a few moments can be so supportive. And then you have the ability to respond to what needs your attention next, as opposed to reacting in some habitual way that might not be so helpful. So, so the question is, what are your stressors? And it's really a skill. Mindfulness is a skill that we practice, gets better over time. And the ability to step out of the thinking mind. So knowing that there's stress, and of course we know it's also the perceived stress, you know, because it's not life-threatening, it's just this perception of whatever's happening is causing us unhappiness. And what happens is we just carry this around and around and around. And then when we have an opportunity for a rest or walk in the park, we miss it. So, so the idea is to step out of it so that you can experience rest and restore your body and step out of this thinking mind, even clear it all out so that you can be fully present for what needs your attention. So I'm going to come back to all of you. And just wondering what you're hearing. If you're hearing, what are you hearing? If you want to put something in the chat about your stressors and your employer's stressors and how you might be able to work with your stressors. So one thing that they have research about is diaphragmatic breathing, and which is a mindful activity as well as paying attention to the breath. And so they know that just 3 diaphragmatic breath, which is belly breathing, you know, actually expanding the entire lungs and rib cage in the front and back, will, 3 of those will take you out of fight or flight and move you towards rest and digest. And that's really what we're doing with mindfulness, is we're coming into the present moment, using the body as a tool. These are the beginning practices, and using the body as a tool to support moments of rest, moments of disengaging with the mind that's producing the fight or flight kind of thinking patterns, which are habitual. And as a society, we're actually somewhat addicted to stress, right? Our bodies just go there. We just like go into these habitual tendencies towards stress, and these stressors aren't resolved, so we carry it. And with mindfulness, we can support taking a moment to rest. So what I'd like to do is a body scan. And so this is another practice that supports de-stressing and mindfulness. And the objective is to put your attention in the body and discover what's there, actually. So again, curiosity is really important in this practice. So if you're not curious, if you don't give the mind something to do, it'll find something to do. And what we're looking to do is taking it off autopilot. So we're going to place the attention in the body and move through the body in a succinct, orderly fashion and discover sensations or no sensation. So the skill is holding your attention in the body, whether there's a sensation or not. And a lot of times, if there's nothing there, the mind rushes in. And we're cultivating the practice of holding it open where there's nothing. And of course, this is where we rest. And then we learn to let go. And then we learn to move the mind. And so there's a lot happening here. And you'll notice the mind thinking all sorts of thoughts, judging what you're doing, judging me. And the practice is to let that go. And it doesn't matter what the thoughts are at this time in the practice. We're just learning to let go and bring the attention back. We're cultivating the skill of holding the attention in the body. And you can see how this would be so helpful in daily living, because then you can hold your attention in the present moment, regardless of what's arising. So I'm just checking the chat here for a second before we go into this practice. So I think, so the question is to, tools to use, like right now, of course, with the pandemic. And I think, again, as managers, like if we're carrying our stress, because we have stress, in a way that's helpful, modeling that behavior is so important. And I think as a manager also, as you're interacting with your employees, to ask them how are you? And then mindful listening, because the answer "I'm fine" isn't an answer anymore, right? It's, the analogy is we're all in the ocean, but we're in separate boats. So we all have our own version of stressors. There's so many factors and elements to our modern day time, and really listening. So it's allowing for your employers to really tell you what's going on for them, and taking up, which isn't always what managers used to do, right? So it's really taking the time to understand what your employees are carrying in terms of stress can be so supportive. You don't have to fix it for them, just listening. And then supporting them taking time to rest, even if it's getting up, taking a walk, or there's lots of ways to support in the moment rest, and these practices are some of those. So let's try a body scan, and then I'd love to hear more from you after this exercise, your comments on what you think of the practices and how you think you can support your employees as well with knowing some of these practices. So just settling back in your chair, and the body scan will be about 7 minutes. So it'll be a very abbreviated body scan, but you can kind of get a sense of what it is, and also the sense of how this skill gets cultivated and improves with these different practices. And so just sitting back in your chair and letting the eyes move towards the floor, or closing the eyes, so we're dropping back into the body. So taking a moment to sense into the body, sensing the body in the chair, sensing back into the breath cycle. So again, now you know you're breathing, you're aware of the breath. Of course, noticing that we're not aware of the breath at all, right? So bringing the attention to the breath, noticing how you're breathing, inviting rest. You can relax, giving yourself permission. And then we start the body scan in the feet. So just letting your attention move down into your feet and just noticing sensations in the feet that arise without any effort on your part, so you can rest. So there might be an energy in the feet, like an aliveness in the feet, a tingling, a pulse. You might sense temperature in the feet. You might sense the feet on the floor. And then the practice is to now let go of the feet and move your attention into the legs. And so you might notice sensations or no sensations in the lower legs, knees, upper legs, tops of legs, bottoms of legs, all the way from the ankles to the hips. And again, if the mind starts thinking or your attention gets pulled, not a problem, just bringing it back to the legs with kindness towards yourself. And then we let go of the legs, and now move your attention into the hands, sensing the temperature of the hands, the palms of the hands, maybe a tingling, a vibration, sensing the tops of the hands, the fingers, the thumbs, maybe fingers touching fingers, sensing hands resting in the lap. And then letting go of the hands and moving your attention into the arms, sensing the arms resting alongside the body, all those contact points. And again, moments where there are no sensations. And of course, if the mind starts thinking, not a problem, just coming back to the arms with patience towards that thinking mind. And then letting go of the arms and bringing your attention to the back body, the hips in the chair, those contact points, the lower back, middle back, upper back, contact with the chair, back body. You might notice some tension in the back body or holding in the back body. And just breathing into the back body, maybe inviting a softening or letting go of tension. If any tension remains, letting it be, even if you don't want it. Then letting go of the back body, moving your attention up past the shoulders, inviting the shoulders to drop from the ears, tracing the back of the neck, the back of the head, just pausing at the top of the head for a moment, sensing into the scalp. Maybe there's no sensations, maybe no thoughts, just an open spaciousness, space where you can rest. And then moving attention to the front of the head, physical sensations in forehead, noticing the eyebrows, noticing the eyes resting in the eye sockets, the nose, the mouth. Inviting the muscles of the face to relax, the tongue and the jaw. As you let go of the head and move your attention back down towards the front body, tracing the throat, the chest, the belly, the heartbeat. Maybe something around stomach, clothing on the front body. Maybe the subtle movement of the breath, the front body lifting on an inhale and the front body falling towards the back on an exhale. And then taking that spotlight of attention like a camera lens and zooming it back to just the breath cycle, just that inflation and deflation. Just that sensation of expansion and then relaxation on the out breath. And just notice how you're breathing now in this moment. Especially if it's shifted from when we first checked in at the beginning of this practice, or maybe at the beginning of our session together. And we'll begin to step out of the practice, just remembering that you can drop out of the head into the body anytime for a rest, a reset. Cultivating the ability to move off of fight or flight into rest, into a place of calm. Cultivating the ability to respond in a way that's helpful. And then beginning to find the space around your body, coming back into the room, wiggling fingers and toes, opening the eyes, coming back to the Zoom. And just wondering how you're feeling now in this moment. If anybody wants to send a chat. And noticing how you feel. If you feel calm, if you feel a sense of rest, if you feel like you've just unloaded some burden, some heaviness in the body and the mind, if you've noticed less thinking, like some clarity, like some of that stuff, we actually tend to think about 90% of the time the same thoughts. And as we practice, we get rid of that surface thinking so that we're available actually to be with whatever the stress challenge is in a new way, a more creative way, a more problem-solving way, as opposed to stress that tends to be, not helpful. Right. So mindfulness is a wonderful tool to use any time of day. Actually, the research is around a 20-minute practice, but it really supports, you can, the 3-minute practice can support a shift. And then that's what's possible, is to shift your present moment experience of one of stress to one that's supportive, life supporting. And of course, transitions are wonderful. So moving from, into work, moving off of work into home or into sleep. So if you notice, if you're highly stressed, it's pretty tough to sleep at night. It's hard to turn the mind off, and to let go of some ruminating thoughts is important in de-stressing. So I think as managers, taking care of ourselves so that we're available and present to support our employees, knowing that and just acknowledging that we're all carrying stress, and that, the fear, we experience fear, even if it's about the future, we experience it this moment as if it's real. But actually in this moment, a lot of times what we find is that worry and fear in this moment, we can let it go. So I think reminding and helping your employees come back to the present moment and work with what's needed in this present moment. So what happens is the mind causes the stress by, creating all of these stories and scenarios that aren't happening right now. So that's kind of the message, is to stay present in your life for what needs your attention now, noticing when you're being pulled into a direction that's not helpful, And it doesn't mean you don't take the time to plan, right? And strategize and, problem solve about future. But in this moment, we can bring a sense of calm and peace to what needs to happen now. So just wondering, other people's comments about your experience of mindfulness and the practice and supporting de-stressing the workplace. And I think one of the main characteristics of mindfulness is that it's not just this cognitive exercise of holding the attention in the present moment. It's also bringing kindness. So I think kindness and compassion, and I think that's what, as leaders and managers, we can be so supportive of the people that we work with in terms of acknowledging just everyone carrying the stress. And then working with tools to help provide, rest. So rest, coming into the body, taking a rest, so that it doesn't accumulate in this way that can cause so much damage to the body. So can I have some questions? Any questions about mindfulness, about our session, about your practice, about your experience of the practices that we just tried? I love that you're feeling relaxed. I mean, hopefully noticing that you're feeling relaxed can kind of prove that it works, right? The experience of on your own, like you did this, like you have the ability to provide rest for yourself. And it's a biological thing that we're doing. We're actually on purpose shifting our nervous system. So any questions that I can answer for anyone? Yes, I'm so happy to be here today and support really well-being for all of us as leaders and employees. And it's so important in the world we live in today, because we're going to be at this for a while. The whole idea that it's a marathon. So this is the opportunity to really get, to start and working with these practices so that you can support taking care of yourself. And of course, we don't just practice for ourselves, we practice for everyone else in our lives so that we can be present for them. So to support them and their stressors.
Thank you so much, Meg. I think this has been an excellent lunch hour program for people to take a little break and actually take a breath and see how that impacts how their day is going. So I really appreciate what you have given us. Is there a place that people can go to find out more about your work or Masterpeace Studios before we wrap up this workshop?
Right, so Masterpeace Studios, the website is masterpeacestudios.org. So that's Masterpeace, P-E-A-C-E, masterpeacestudios.org. And I'd be happy to, there's a phone number on there. The website needs some updating, but the phone number is there to reach out, and I'd be glad to visit and share more tools.
Thank you, Meg. Does anyone else have any questions? If you'd like to put them in the chat room. Otherwise, I think we will wrap up this workshop today. We really appreciate your help and all your time.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your next 2 days.
Thank you, Meg. Have a good one.
You too.